I am not a fan of Draco Malfoy. Now, you may be wondering, if I am not a fan of Draco Malfoy, why did I make a 28-minute long video about Draco Malfoy? And the answer to that is, I don't think Draco Malfoy is a great character, but I think he could have been and should have been one. Throughout the 7 books and 8 films of the Harry Potter series, Malfoy has been the childhood bully who antagonized our main heroes either because they're an orphan,
She was dead before you could wipe the drool off your chin.
or because they're poor,
You must be a Weasley.
or because he's a racist. And while he was a pretty big part of the first 2 books, Malfoy pretty much got sidelined in books 3, 4, and 5, and really only becomes a major character in book 6, The Half-Blood Prince. And his sudden jump from childhood bully to active player in the Wizarding War seemed to indicate that he would undergo a significant character arc in the last book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, where he would either fully learn from and grow from his mistakes, or fully succumb to the Death Eater life just like his father. And he doesn't. He doesn't undergo a character arc. He doesn't really seem to do anything in the last book, other than get awkwardly hugged by Voldemort. And I think that's a shame, because I think he could have had a really interesting redemption story in the finale. And that's by having Malfoy join the trio, becoming a main character in the last book, and being instrumental in Voldemort's defeat. Because let's face it, we all love a good bad guy, but we also all love a good bad guy. And for a series as long and widely beloved as Harry Potter, it's a little surprising that none of the villains in the series actually have a proper redemption arc like villains in other popular works do. And yeah, I know there's technically Snape, but Snape's redemption arc was entirely set in the past, and he was always a good guy from the start of the series, so that's not really a redemption arc as much as it is a redemptive reveal. So that's what we're here to talk about. I rewrote all of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows while inserting Draco Malfoy as one of the main characters, and I think it's much better than what we got. So buckle up your seatbelts and hold on tight. This is Now, in case it's not obvious, I'm going to be talking in length about the whole series, and in particular the last book and the last 2 movies, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. So, in case you've never watched or read Harry Potter,
Ron, you spoiled everything!
So, as a quick refresher, in case you're not like me and you don't think about Harry Potter anytime you're not thinking about Marvel, or Star Wars, or cats, Draco Malfoy was the son of a wizard Nazi, and he was a pretty petty childhood bully for most of the series until the 6th book, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, where he was recruited by Wizard Hitler in order to assassinate Gandalf. He chickens out, and everyone's favorite professor,
Turn to page 394.
kills him instead.
Avada Kedavra.
So Gandalf's dead, Harry's sad, everyone's sad, I'm crying inside, and our beloved trio drop out of high school to search for the Infinity Stones so they can kill Wizard Hitler. Or,
Something like that.
And in the books and the films, that's basically where Malfoy's story ends. He's there in the last one, and he appears to have a bit of a redemptive moment because he doesn't immediately rat out Harry when he gets caught halfway through. But I mean, he still fights for Voldemort later on, so I don't know if that really counts as redemption. And afterwards, his family just nopes it right out there anyway. And he shows up at the very end in his mid-30s, and he's like, "Hey." Respectful nod, even though we've never really come to terms with each other during the course of this whole series, but I guess I respect you now or something. And now here's where I think the series could have gone. Let's go back to that moment where Malfoy tries to kill Dumbledore. He overpowers Dumbledore, and he tells Dumbledore that he's become a Death Eater and he has to kill him, or else Voldemort will kill Malfoy and his family. Dumbledore then tries to calm him down, telling him that he can offer protection for Malfoy and his parents.
You don't have to follow your father's path. You are free to choose who you want to be. And I know deep down, You are no killer, Draco.
Malfoy is hesitant, but he knows he can't bring himself to kill Dumbledore, so he lowers his wand and accepts Dumbledore's help. But right at that moment, the Death Eaters arrive and Malfoy's moment of hesitation is gone. Snape takes over and kills Dumbledore.
Avada Kedavra.
The Death Eaters escape. But at the end of the book, Malfoy appears before Harry, Ron, and Hermione. He snuck away from the other Death Eaters and he tells them he wants to help them take down Voldemort. He wants to join them. Of course, all three would immediately reject any help that Malfoy has to offer. I mean, after all, why would any of them trust Malfoy? But he defends himself, saying he has nowhere else to go. Voldemort knows now that he's failed to kill Dumbledore, so Malfoy knows if he went back, he would be killed.
Or worse, expelled.
He tells them that Dumbledore offered him protection and he agreed to it, and Harry knows this to be true. Harry and Ron probably still wouldn't want anything to do with Malfoy, but Hermione could reason that he might be their biggest help. After all, they're supposed to find the Horcruxes, and none of them really know where to start. Malfoy, as a former Death Eater, could have valuable information that would help them with this mission. And ultimately, the trio decide to accept Malfoy's help, because they really have no other option. They have 4 Horcruxes to find and 0 idea on where to start, and Malfoy's the only one who could help them find them. And as proof of where his loyalties lie, Harry and Malfoy perform an unbreakable vow in which Malfoy swears his loyalty to Harry for as long as his family is safe, and that he will never betray Harry to Voldemort. And this is how we end the Half-Blood Prince, and I figure it would be a really cool image to end on. 2 childhood rivals, a Gryffindor and a Slytherin, one branded with a scar and the other with a dark mark, coming together after 6 years to put an end to their rivalry and to take down the one who threatens both of their families. And in my rewrite, this will actually play a key role at the end of the series in a way that I really liked, so stick around for that. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows then starts with the Order of the Phoenix helping Harry escape from his home upon his 17th birthday. Malfoy probably would not have been involved in this plot at all, since no one really trusts him yet, so he can just be hiding out in the Weasleys' home. And shortly afterwards, Bill Weasley and Fleur have their wedding, and the movie kind of glossed over this whole event, but in the book, Harry actually had to be disguised as a Weasley to hide his identity. They had to use magic to give him red hair and freckles, so I think it would be hilarious if Malfoy, like Harry, would have to be disguised as a Weasley cousin as well, and much to his disgust, would be forced to interact with a family he's made fun of all his life. And while the Weasley kids would probably be really antagonistic towards him, I'd imagine that Arthur and Molly might share some sympathy for him and treat him surprisingly warmly. I mean, sure, they don't really like him, but he's their guest. And they do understand on some level that he's just a kid who's been raised wrong. And this could be a big moment for Malfoy, as he sees the Weasleys show each other such love and compassion that he's never really seen in his family before. Sure, his parents love him, but they can also be kind of cold, especially his father. And he's surprised to find himself maybe a little jealous at the warmth that the Weasleys share. After the wedding is attacked by Death Eaters, the group escapes, only for them to get attacked by Death Eaters again. Harry and Ron get paranoid and accuse Malfoy of ratting out their location, only for Malfoy to remind them that he literally can't do that because of their unbreakable vow. Still, however, they're suspicious of him, especially Ron now that his family has been put in danger. Malfoy can find out somehow that his father Lucius has recently been found dead, and he realizes that Voldemort had indeed killed him for Draco's failure to assassinate Dumbledore, with his mother, Narcissa, being left alive likely as incentive for Draco to come back. And hearing of his father's death would add further incentive for Malfoy to stick with Harry out of a sense of self-preservation. He can't go back to his mother or he'll get killed by Voldemort. He can't go back to Hogwarts because Snape is currently headmaster, and he still thinks Snape is working for Voldemort. And he can't go out on his own because he knows he won't survive long by himself. So, to Malfoy, sticking with Harry is the best bet he has to remain safe and alive. Afterwards, the group find out that Slytherin's locket is one of the Horcruxes, and Malfoy displays his usefulness by informing them that the locket is in the possession of Dolores Umbridge. The group infiltrates the Ministry of Magic, steals the locket, and is forced to escape into the woods. The really long camping sequence happens, and while Malfoy isn't exactly getting along with the trio, he's not necessarily being as much of a dick as he was before. And his presence could be aggravating towards Ron, who, under the influence of the locket, could start to grow jealous due to perceiving Harry and Hermione as trusting Malfoy over himself. After all, if there's anyone who hates Malfoy more than Harry does, it's Ron, and he could grow increasingly paranoid and frustrated even that the other two seem to be trusting Malfoy so easily. Then Ron's frustration eventually reaches a tipping point and he leaves the group, accusing Hermione of choosing Harry over himself, and accusing both of them of trusting Malfoy over their own best friend. And during Ron's absence, this could be a really good time to facilitate some growth and a little bonding between Malfoy and Harry and Hermione. Of course, I don't think they would become friends right away, that'd be a little too extreme of a change. But this would be a good chance for them to start to get to know one another a bit more. The whole series thus far, we've only ever seen Malfoy through Harry's perspective, so it would be kind of cool to see Malfoy more for who he is. We could learn more about his childhood and his inner psyche. Nothing to make him totally sympathetic, but enough for us to understand why he is the way he is. And again, I don't think Malfoy should completely change his character and totally bond with them at this point, but it would be a good start for us to understand who he is and for him to start to challenge his preconceived beliefs that his family taught him, especially now that he's seen how his father's misguided ideology led directly to his own death. So Harry and Hermione go to Godric's Hollow, and Malfoy stays behind in the camp. This is more of a private, intimate moment between Harry and Hermione, so I don't think Malfoy should really be there. After they learn about Gellert Grindelwald, and Harry gets attacked by the snake, who turns out to be a Korean lady. Yeah, thanks for that, J.K. Rowling. That was really nice of you to do that.
That was awesome. That was so cool.
They can make it back to the campsite where Malfoy explains to them the backstory of Grindelwald as the original Wizard Hitler. After all, it checks out that Slytherins would be taught who Grindelwald was. So, it makes sense that Malfoy's the one who explains this to them. Harry finds the Sword of Grindelwald. Harry finds the Sword of Gryffindor and reunites with Ron. They break some jewelry together. Ron returns to the campsite, and he explains that Voldemort put a taboo on his name, which is how the Death Eaters have been tracking the group, basically affirming that Malfoy had nothing to do with it, and he wasn't at all responsible for the Death Eaters finding them. The group goes to Xenophilius Lovegood, learn about the Deathly Hallows, and they get attacked by Death Eaters. And I think this would be a really good time to show a little moment where Malfoy possibly gets caught by one of the Death Eaters, and Harry, Ron, and Hermione have the opportunity to abandon him and just escape on their own. But Harry chooses to go back and rescue Malfoy. And afterwards, Malfoy could be like, "Why did you save me?" And Harry could respond with something like, "Well, we need you alive." But of course, we understand that to mean Harry honestly just doesn't want Malfoy to die. A little bond is starting to form here, and they start to see each other as actual allies. Shortly after, the group gets caught by Snatchers, and Hermione makes Harry's face all puffed up so they can't identify him. But they do recognize Malfoy, so the Snatchers take them all to Malfoy Manor. This of course will be the greatest test to Malfoy's loyalty. Harry, Ron, Hermione, and the rest are captured by Death Eaters, and Malfoy is home again and returned to his mother. And Malfoy would be offered a chance to start over. He and his mother could leave and go into hiding and leave behind the entire war. And since Malfoy wouldn't technically be betraying Harry to Voldemort, he's not really breaking his unbreakable vow. This could be a big milestone for his character arc as he debates between his personal well-being and that of his new allies, with a golden opportunity to leave and hide forever, and every reason to do so. But he willingly chooses not to flee and instead to help his new friends. He recalls how Harry had risked his life to save him, and now he's learned to care about the people outside his own family. And he's fully realized that there are bigger things at stake than just his own safety. So he helps them. And the group ultimately escape. Draco Malfoy escapes from Malfoy Manor. And that, kids, is what we call symbolism. Now, for the entire second half of the book and all of the Part 2 movie, Draco is a different person. He's changed. For the first time, he starts calling the others by their first names, and he asks them to call him Draco, since right now he's not really willing to be associated with the Malfoy name, at least for the time being. He's much nicer to the others, and they, in return, treat him with respect. They're not exactly friends per se, but they all now mutually respect and trust one another as allies. He's no longer fueled by a desire simply for self-preservation, but now by a new desire to forge his own path and to do the right thing. The group deduces that there must be a Horcrux in Bellatrix's vault, and Draco can play a big part in helping them break into it. He's a former Death Eater, and Bellatrix Lestrange is his aunt, so it makes sense that he has some amount of valuable information that would help them in breaking into the vault. And in the book and in the movie, Harry is shown performing an Imperius Curse on a goblin, but this never really made sense, and I think it makes a lot more sense for Draco to do so. Again, he's a former Death Eater, and he's likely done these curses before, or at the very least was taught them. Harry's never successfully performed an unforgivable curse in his life, so it doesn't really make sense that he did this. They manage to get Hufflepuff's cup, break out on a dragon, and they head to Hogwarts. And now it's time for the big finale. And side note, here's something that's always really bugged me about the Harry Potter series. J.K. Rowling and Potterheads love to say,
Okay, well, not all Slytherins are evil Nazis, and lots of them are good, actually.
but the way I see it, the actual series does very little to actually show that. I mean, sure, you can say that there are good Slytherins out there, and the good guys aren't all Gryffindors, but it means so little when the actual text constantly emphasizes that all good guys are Gryffindors with very few exception, and all bad guys are Slytherins. Especially when the movie has a teacher literally saying, "Take all the Slytherin students and lock them up in the
Dungeons.
Exactly where is it I'll be leading them to, Mom?
The dungeons would do.
So, instead of that, we could have had Draco being an example of a Slytherin who isn't all bad. When the group arrive at Hogwarts, we could have had Draco speaking to all the Slytherins about his own experience as a Death Eater, and rally a group of Slytherins to fight to protect Harry, which would be a really good chance to show to the audience and really emphasize that #not all Slytherins are evil Nazi children. It's a chance for the actual text to show the audience that Slytherins can be good, and that the actions of the few don't necessarily reflect the many.
The dungeons would do.
And is it subtle? No, not really. But I feel like it's better than nothing. Alright, let's keep going. So now, fast forward a little bit to the Room of Requirement. Draco again is here with Crabbe and Goyle like he is in the original, but this time, instead of fighting with them, he has to fight against them. Draco is confronted by Crabbe and Goyle and tries to persuade them to join him, but they're too dead set on their old ways, and Draco is forced to fight his two former best friends in order to protect his new allies. And this could be really good. They are basically a reflection of the person he could have, and honestly would have become, had he not undergone his whole character arc. Crabbe produces a Fiend Fire spell that goes wrong and destroys the whole room. And here, the book treats it as basically an accident that one of the Horcruxes, Ravenclaw's diadem, was destroyed. But I'd like to make it so that Draco intentionally destroys it by throwing it into the Fiend Fire. It would be really nice if Draco gets his moment, since every other Horcrux was destroyed by a major character. And I think it's narratively a lot stronger for the diadem to get destroyed on purpose, rather than just, whoopsie doopsie, into the fire. Now, fast forward some more to the end, and Harry gets killed by Voldemort. But don't worry, he gets better. Narcissa Malfoy goes up to him, and she asks Harry if her son is safe, just like in the book. But in the original, it's kind of random, since why would she think that Harry knows for certain whether or not her son is safe? And in my rewrite, it makes a little bit more sense, because she has reason to believe that Harry would know if her son is safe or not. They're on the same side. Now on to the last battle between Harry and Voldemort. And we've come to what's honestly my favorite addition to this change. Now, sidebar for a minute, but in case you've forgotten, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows introduces the idea of wand allegiance, which is a concept that I never particularly liked, and which I think is pretty poorly done. So basically, the wand chooses the wizard, right?
The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter.
But it's revealed in the last book that wands can decide to change their mind.
This was the wand of Draco Malfoy. I sense his allegiance has changed.
The Elder Wand in particular is very picky with its wielder and will change allegiances if it detects that its current owner has been overpowered. And typically that means if you kill the owner of the Elder Wand, you become its new owner because it senses that you are stronger. Which, I guess that makes enough sense considering the Elder Wand is supposed to be the greatest, most powerful wand that's ever existed. So, this Elder Wand used to belong to Johnny Depp, who was defeated in battle by Gandalf, who was killed by
Page 394.
who was killed by Wizard Hitler. So, in the big epic final showdown, Voldemort believes that he has become the true owner of the Elder Wand. But Harry reveals that Page 394 was actually working with Gandalf the whole time, and that killing was actually planned by Gandalf himself, so it doesn't technically count. And so,
Plot twist.
the real master was Draco Malfoy because he disarmed him right before. And okay, sure. And then
Plot twist.
it's revealed that Harry actually becomes the true owner because he yanked Malfoy's wand out of his hand that one time.
Really?
The most powerful wand in existence can only be acquired by defeating and or killing its current owner, or I guess you can just physically yank something out of someone's hand. And I guess this counts as overpowering him? And this is the big plot twist revelation that results in Voldemort's demise. Again, Voldemort, the villain of the entire series, one of the most powerful wizards to have ever lived, and one of the most famous villains ever created, loses based on a technicality. So, yeah, this is pretty weak. This is not good.
This is bad.
Instead, I think my version of the book could have improved this a lot. Everything else would remain the same. Dumbledore owns a wand, but it goes under the possession of Draco Malfoy because he disarmed him. But instead of Harry winning the Elder Wand through this moment, it could have instead been through this moment. When Harry and Draco made their unbreakable vow, the Elder Wand interpreted this act as Harry becoming Draco's master, and therefore the wand's master as well. And after all, the Elder Wand values strength and power above all else, so it makes sense that it wouldn't choose to stay with a wizard who swears loyalty to someone else. And it would be such a great moment because the Elder Wand is only won by killing its owner, but Harry doesn't play by those rules. Harry doesn't win the most powerful wand of all time through violence and force, but through friendship. After all, that's what makes Harry and Voldemort different. Voldemort fails to understand love and friendship, and he only believes in power. He says as much the very first time he and Harry meet.
There is no good and evil. There is only power, and those too weak to seek it.
He constantly underestimates the power of love. It's the reason why he died to begin with, and it's the reason why he never suspected that his right-hand man was a double agent. But Harry proves this wrong. He proves time and time again that love and compassion are the most powerful magic in the world. So it would be such a strong moment if in the end, Harry wins the Elder Wand's allegiance not by physically overpowering Draco, but by befriending him and accepting his help. It's not power and violence that ultimately defeat Voldemort, but love and friendship and loyalty. And isn't that what Harry Potter is all about? Is this perfect? No, not by any means. There are a lot of problems with this idea, I know. I definitely think that if Malfoy were to really have gotten a redemption arc, the seeds need to have been sown much earlier, like in Goblet of Fire and Order of the Phoenix. And I don't think it would have been all that hard since he doesn't really do anything in those books anyway. But giving Malfoy a whole redemption arc entirely within the last book would seem a bit quick. But in this video, I'm only working within the constraints of the last book. And I know people will say that, well, Draco Malfoy is a pretty realistic depiction of a racist bully of alt-right parents, since when he's confronted with the harsh reality, he and his family chose to run away. And J.K. Rowling has gone on record to call Malfoy a boy of
dubious morality.
And many would argue that to make Malfoy into a good guy by the end of the series would kind of rob him of the moral ambiguity of his character. And I agree with this. But I would also argue that the series already has a lot of morally ambiguous characters. Snape is a morally ambiguous character. Dumbledore is a very morally ambiguous character. And I think giving Malfoy a redemption arc would allow him to be something different and unique in the series. An alt-right bully who learns to challenge his family's beliefs and to care for people outside his own immediate family. And he does so as basically a consequence of his own actions. None of the main characters are forcing the change on him, and none of them are trying to fix him. It's something he has to learn by himself by being in a situation that his own actions caused. He overcomes his selfishness and cowardliness and provides important help to the heroes when they need it. Draco Malfoy was forced to face the consequences of his actions, and in doing so, he changes for the better. And I think that's a really strong message for everyone to learn when a major theme of the series is the redemptive power of love. So, 19 years later, Harry bumps into Draco at platform 9 3/4. They exchange a look, but it means something this time. They're not just awkward acquaintances, they're allies. They're friends. And maybe this time, their children will be able to have the close friendship that they never did. Hey, that's a cool idea. Someone should write a book about that. Oh, wait, no! Hi guys, so if you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe. This is my first video ever, so it would be cool if you did that. This is totally new for me, and it's a long and awkward journey trying to get this video made. So yeah, did you like this idea? Did you not? Do you have issues with it? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you all.